Houston is one of the nation's great cities, vibrant and friendly, diverse and dynamic. Understanding the diversity of cultures, experiences, skills and aspirations of the people who live here and how they change over time is the key to making our city even better every day. That is the relentless pursuit of the Kinder Institute for Urban Research at Rice University, to build better cities and improve people's lives by bringing together data, research, engagement, and action. It all began years ago with Professor Stephen Kleinberg's student project on what would become the now famous Kinder Houston Area Survey. Today, working out of our home and craft hall on the Rice campus, the Kinder Institute is a powerhouse of urban research that profoundly impacts life in the Houston region. Hundreds of companies, nonprofit organizations, and community leaders rely on our research to address critical issues facing our area. As an example, since Hurricane Harvey, housing has been recognized as a major concern here. That's thanks in large part to the Kinder Institute's work as we documented how many Houstonians struggle to get and keep adequate housing. As a result, civic and nonprofit leaders across the city are now working to ensure that everyone has a stable place to live. The Kinder Institute also partners with 11 Houston area public school districts, serving nearly 750,000 students to improve educational outcomes. In 2021, the Houston Education Research Consortium produced 22 research reports, many used to inform school districts, including HISD's new strategic plan. And we are committed to making data more easily accessible to all. Through datahouston.org, our web portal, we encourage residents to learn more about their neighborhood to make it a better place to live. Our Resilience and Recovery Tracker shows how Hurricane Harvey recovery money is being spent and the progress we're making in becoming more resilient. We connect people to national thought leaders in urban innovation through our Kinder Institute Forum and Urban Reads live events. We also offer Rice students the chance to join the cause. Each year, through the Kinder Institute's Community Bridges program, Rice undergraduates work with area nonprofits in underserved neighborhoods to conduct important research to identify opportunities for improvement. From our rather humble beginnings as a sociology class project to the world-class urban research institute that we have become, the Kinder Institute remains focused on a moving target, to do our part to make Houston a stronger and more equitable place to live and work. We do it for all of us. We couldn't do it without your leadership and support. The future is ours together. The Kinder Institute for Urban Research at Rice University, building better cities, building better lives. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2022 Kinder Institute Luncheon. Please welcome our MC, award-winning journalist and ABC 13 Eyewitness News anchor, Melanie Lawson.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everybody. Let me tell you right up front, you've got the best ticket in town. This is going to be such an important and meaningful luncheon today, and we get a chance to really honor the life's careers of two of our favorite people on the planet. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I did want to just welcome you, but if you wonder why the energy is so high today, it's because I think all of us recognize this is where we really want to be. So thank you very much. I should say I'm Melanie Lawson. Thank you to whoever announced me before. And it is a thrill for me to be here this afternoon serving as MC for this very special program. For those of you who have attended the luncheon in the past, welcome back in person. We're happy to have you here. It is great. I know we've done this virtually a couple of times, so it's awfully nice to be here in the flesh. And to some of our new friends in the room, we are so glad you have joined us today. And I'm sure you feel, as we all do, that it is wonderful to be together here. As you saw in that fantastic video that just played, the Kinder Institute's mission is centered on improving people's lives by building a better city here in Houston. Now, the Kinder Institute collaborates with a variety of community partners, ranging from HISD to the United Way, to make sure that the research that is conducted has an impact on Houston and the people who live here. I want to be very clear, this isn't just a think tank, this is a think and do tank. And the Kinder Institute plays a vital role in connecting Rice University to the city at large. Well, today we have a whole lot to celebrate. Through your generous support, you've helped to advance the Kinder Institute's mission to build better cities and improve people's lives. Houston, as you well know, and we have to thank Dr. Kleinberg for telling us this, it's one of our nation's most diverse and dynamic cities. So many of you are joining us to hear from Dr. Steve Kleinberg about the survey results. Every year we anticipate hearing from him and how its findings have and will continue to address so many critical issues that affect our community. You may also know that Dr. Kleinberg is retiring after leading the Kinder Houston area survey for over 40 years. So just a round of applause for that. Dr. Kleinberg is one of the most energetic people I know, and he loves presenting his survey, and we all love hearing from him. But to honor all of he's done for the last 4 decades, we've asked him to sit down for an interview today with Bill Fulton, who is current director of the Kinder Institute, and share some of his great stories and insights over the years. He's really helped lead this city into the 21st century by telling us so much of what we needed to know about ourselves. It's really illuminating. I also want to introduce right now another person who has had a great effect. As you probably know or have caught on, this is the Kinder Institute for Urban Research at Rice University. And David Lebron has served as Rice University's 7th president since 2004. Under his leadership, as we've all seen, Rice has experienced huge growth and transformation. And we are honored that he is joining us today because this is also his swan song, at least for now. So we'd like you to welcome to the stage the president of Rice University, David Lebron.
Thank you so much, Melanie, not just for being our MC for this afternoon, not just for being an extraordinary journalist and voice for our city, but for carrying on an extraordinary family legacy. When we look for examples of how we can contribute to progress, we really can do no better than the family of the Reverend William Lawson. It's indeed a great joy to be here in person for this celebration. Well over 1,000 people. I don't think I've been with this many people in 3 years. But this is a group of people who have in common a passion for our city and a belief that we can do better and make it a greater place as we contribute to our city, our nation, and our world. I want to add my thanks to Steve Kleinberg, who, I don't know if there's an English word. The German word would be sort of Urgroßvater, not just the grandfather of what we're doing, but the sort of super grandfather of this entire endeavor. That's not a reference to age, Steve. It's just a reference to the incredible impact, to Bill Fulton, who has taken the Institute to a new level, to our new leader shortly, Ruth Lopez Turley, who has done remarkable work already through HERC and in education. We know that she will take the Kinder Institute into new impact in our city. To Chao, a remarkable force in our city in so many areas, and you'll hear more about that later. And most especially thanks to Rich and Nancy Kinder, whose pivotal vision and philanthropy 12 years ago have helped shape Rice's engagement with Houston and advance progress for our city. It seems to me that 4 defining facts shape the urgency of our mission. First, that 83% of people in the United States live in urban areas. Second, that Houston, predicted to be the 3rd largest city within 8 years, has extraordinary potential not only for success as a city of the 21st century, but indeed to set an example for other cities. Third, we stand, as Steve Kleinberg has so often said, as an example of what the American future looks like, in particular in terms of the great diversity of our city. And fourth, we are not, however, succeeding, as Ruth Lopez Turley has emphasized, at extending the opportunity of Houston and of America to all Houstonians. We are a city that is proud of its immigrants from across the globe and the welcome we extend. We are a city that is passionate about providing opportunity for its diverse population, and we must work harder. As I remarked at my inauguration as Rice's president not quite 18 years ago, our research endeavors at Rice must include, quote, a focus on the problems of Houston, from its educational challenges to its environmental problems, and we must play a part in solving those problems. We, Rice University, must not simply be a university in Houston, but a university of Houston and for Houston, and a vital part of its path into the future. The Kinder Institute, created a dozen years ago, was indeed a pivot and tipping point for the relationship between Rice and Houston. In the meantime, every part of our university has strongly engaged with the city of Houston. Every school at our university, our faculty, our staff, and our students, from our education to our research to our support of efforts like the United Way and Hurricane Harvey recovery, Houston is a deeply embedded part of our mission at Rice University. And indeed, as 4 years ago we reconsidered our strategic plans, we moved from the idea of, quote, engaging with the city of Houston to engaging with and empowering the success of Houston. And that is indeed what the Kinder Institute has achieved. From, as you have heard, from the education through the Houston Education Research Consortium to becoming a center for research and ideas about the urban future, to understanding deeply our own city and its people and its trajectory through the Kinder Houston Area Survey. Engage with and empower the city of Houston, so reflected in the Kinder Institute's mission and now also reflected in the ION, the new innovation hub in Midtown Houston. None of this is possible without great partnerships, and in particular, partnerships with the leadership in Houston. We have been fortunate over my time to have had mayors who are great partners, and it's my pleasure now to introduce a really terrific partner, Mayor Sylvester Turner, who has made possible so many of the things that we have been able to achieve at Rice. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Sylvester Turner.
You know, David and I are following each other so much that the cougars are starting to wonder whether I'm a cougar or an owl. But let me just say to President David Liebram and certainly to his wife, Ping. Rice has truly been an incredible, incredible partner with the city of Houston, and your leadership has simply been amazing. Please give it up to David Lebron. To the provost and his wife, and certainly to the Kinders. When they were being introduced, I leaned over to Nance and said, "Are they talking about you all? Are you all the Kinders?" And so I have the privilege of having worked with them very closely. Let me thank you all for what you do. And of course, to a good friend, to Dr. Stephen Kleinberg. What an incredible guy. I don't have a German statement, like David. In Acres the Fofo, we just say, "You're a cool dude, man." You just Look, before I introduce Ann, I do want to acknowledge and congratulate Dr. Stephen Kleinberg on his retirement. Although I told him a few minutes ago, a person like Dr. Kleinberg never retires. They just transition to something in some other role. Dr. Kleinberg has shaped Houston's future through his pioneering work with the Kinder Houston Area Survey, and it's something that we have always looked forward to every single year. His work has truly been influential, but more than that, your work has been transformational. I've always said that if you want to get a sense of where the United States will be 20, 25 years from now, take a look at Houston, and if you want to get a better understanding of our demographics, you need only listen to Dr. Stephen Kleinberg. And he has just done us well as a city, the focus on education, the focus on our diversity, and making sure that we're all included. So for that, I certainly want to say thank you. Now, speaking of exceptional Houstonians, every year I have the pleasure of introducing an outstanding Houstonian who, like the Kinder Institute itself, helps build a better Houston. This year, I have the honor of introducing this year's Stephen L. Kleinberg Award honoree, Dr. Ann S. Chao. Who received her master's and doctorate from the Rice Department of History. The Klineberg Award recognizes individuals of extraordinary impact who make Houston a place we are proud to call home. As a community leader, philanthropist, educator, and historian, Ann is a passionate advocate for advancing the appreciation for diversity in our city, the nation's most diverse metropolis. She has taught and mentored students in the programs of poverty, justice, and human capabilities. And while so much of Ann's background has been spent studying and learning about the things that make us unique, she is a tireless advocate for bringing our citizens together through education, culture, and civic leadership. Beyond her service on the Kinder Institute's advisory board, Ann is involved with several nonprofits in Houston, such as the Museum of Fine Arts, the Houston Ballet, Houston Public Library Foundation, and the Don Wang Foundation. We all have benefited from her spirit of generosity, time, and talent. And I will be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge the transformative act of philanthropy from Ann and her husband, Albert, who created the Chao Center for Asian Studies at Rice, which houses the Houston Asian American Archives, a record of lived experiences of the Asian diaspora in Houston. Ann once said, "I want to challenge others to examine their lives while there is still time to look to the future and to choose to love others before any accomplishment or thriving." That's Ann Chao. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to know that the city of Houston is grateful for all that she has done and all that she will continue to do. And it is my sincere pleasure to name this year's Stephen L. Kleinberg Award honoree, Ann S. Chao.
Thank you, Mayor Turner, for all of your kind words, and thank you to Kinder Institute for giving this honor. No one is more surprised than I to receive this award. When Mr. Kinder graciously called and informed me of the honor, I half expected him to call back and say that it had been all a mistake and someone else should be getting the award. To be considered in the same group as the august predecessors who received this award, all those wonderful people who've done so much for the city of Houston, it's really a humbling and most grateful experience. Nancy and Rich, thank you so much for your inspiring leadership and for your tireless dedication to make city of Houston a better place to live. So in his latest book, Prophetic City, Stephen Kleinberg tells us that all Houston area residents are now minorities, that our entropy index is better than any city in America, meaning that we have reached as close to an equal fourth distribution of Asians, Blacks, Hispanics, and Anglos. The book is a call to action for us to build a truly inclusive, multi-ethnic, and successful city. Something, Steve says, that has not been done in human history. As a first-generation immigrant, I rejoice at the size and richness of the immigrant population in our city. Today, the fastest-growing subset of the group is the Asian American population. In an effort to document their experiences since their arrival in early 20th century, the Rice University's Houston Asian American Archive has collected more than 450 stories so far. These stories range widely. They include, for example, stories of the incredibly tight-knit G clan, whose patriarchs helped each other open grocery stores and restaurants during the Jim Crow era, and which counts today among its descendants a renowned immigrant lawyer and a co-founder of the Hope Clinic, a community clinic serving immigrants from 30 different nations. There's also an account of Daya, the South Asian Women's Center, whose founder, the wife of an Indian physician, began by passing out her own home phone number to those in need. And today it has grown into a multi-million-dollar enterprise, helping thousands of South Asian women out of difficult situations. The archive also contains inspiring stories of Vietnamese refugees who suffered trauma and tragic losses in their escape from the war-torn country, but who reinvented themselves in a myriad of ways as real estate developers, poet, physicians, FBI consultant, and nail salon owners in their new home city of Houston. We chronicle these stories because, in order to build a successful future together, we must get to know one another on a deep human level. In some small way, I hope that the material in our archive will contribute to the much grander mission of the Kinder Institute to build better cities and build better lives. I have great hope that together we can make Houston a model for our urban future. Thank you for the award.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to Ann Chao. That's fantastic. And thank you so much to the mayor. We appreciate him showing up once again to give our award. as well as President Lebron, who, by the way, moved here from New York and brought his jewel of a wife, Ping, who is sitting over there right now. And the good news is they're going to stick around. Now that they're here, they're going to stick around. And I'm sure that means we'll be calling on them every chance we get. Well, we're going to take a brief break right now so you can enjoy lunch and, more importantly, enjoy the folks at your table. And we'll be back in just a few minutes, so enjoy.
I met Steve 30, maybe 40 years ago, probably at maybe a Rice seminar.
I met Steve, I believe, for the first time at a Quaker meeting.
I have known Dr. Kleinberg, Steve, really only for a couple of years, but I've known his work for decades.
First time I met Steve, though, I knew he was a kindred spirit, that he had a real heart for helping others.
I first came to Houston in 1984 to go to Rice. I did not yet know I was going to be a sociology major, but it looked like an interesting class.
Had a strong belief in social justice, and that's part of how we have worked together in the community these 40 years.
It's actually hard for me to overemphasize the importance of Steve's work in how that has driven our mission at United Way.
His lectures are fantastic. He can talk a mile a minute, but you can understand him.
He was electric. He was so excited about this city. You know, I'm like a small town kid. I had no idea what cities were like. And here was a guy who wanted to tell me all about this one and to find out more.
He brings this singular, infectious enthusiasm to everything he does.
Because I was so young, and I did not yet know how involved I would eventually be with Houston. I didn't know that I cared about Houston yet. I didn't care about Houston yet. I was just trying to get my sociology credit. And I look back and I realized how much this has shaped my later life.
Steve has become a great friend and someone that I really cherish his mentoring. He has a lot of wisdom on the important issues in our city, and he's so credible. Everybody loves him, everybody listens to him, everybody believes him.
There's so many things about Stephen's work that have really deeply affected me. One is simply this attention paid to a city. As a journalist, I realized in my 30s, oh, this is what I care most about. What is this city? What is it doing? How is it changing? What makes it run?
During the time that I served as the president of the Collaborative for Children, our focus was on how to improve the quality of early education. One of the things that we always looked forward to was the survey coming out every year and what it would tell us about what we're doing and how we can improve, and how we can be more responsive to the community.
You look at our city now, the racial mix and the ethnic mix, it's incredible, and it's our strength. My gosh, so many people don't want it to change, but it's gonna change, and you have to embrace the change. And I think Steve has helped us embrace the changes.
And, as Steve says in Prophetic City, Houston is kind of the laboratory and the frontier for the rest of the United States. What happens here could be a leading indicator of what's to come across the rest of the nation.
You've given your life to Rice University.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for everything that you have done for me and for my city.
Thank you so much on behalf of me all the things you've done for me and my company, and all you've done for the city of Houston. Thank you.
If we are able to find ourselves in a place where we are achieving or even getting close to achieving the promise that this community holds, it will be in no small part because of your incredible body of work and also your incredible heart. So thank you so much for all that you've done. And we will miss you very much, and we hope that we still see you around.
Thank you, Steve, for the amazing contribution that you've made to our community. Thank you for your research to show us how we can be a more equitable and fairer place to live. And lastly, thank you for being my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage our MC, award-winning journalist and ABC 13 Eyewitness News anchor, Melanie Lawson.
Thank you so much. I'm glad I had a moment to kind of recover there. That was a magnificent video, and we want to thank the folks that put it together. Truly incredible. A lasting legacy is all about the actions you take during your lifetime and the way those actions affect the people who know and remember and love you. And Stephen Kleinberg has made an indelible impression on all of us in the city of Houston. As we celebrate and honor his 41 years dedicated to advancing the mission of the Kinder Institute, it is evident that his legacy will continue to positively impact our city. Now, the interesting thing about Stephen is he can make the driest information so exciting. As you look at all that data and numbers and your head starts to spin, he gets up and he's so energetic and so excited that we get pretty excited too. And we almost forget that what started off as an academic exercise 41 years ago, just a few students and this new professor who thought he would try out something fun, has turned into a real building block for our city. Every year, we get a chance to not only see us as we are right now, but as we will be in the future. And that's why it is required reading for just about everybody. By the way, Stephen, I see you sitting there. I'm going to sell your book. Prophetic City is fantastic. So if you have a chance, pick it up. It's great history. It's great history about our city, but it's also just a wonderful way to see who we are and who we will be. Well, as many of you know, Bill Fulton has been the MC of this event for a number of years, but today he's switching hats. He's going to take on the important responsibility of interviewing Stephen Kleinberg and allow all of us to take a different look into his time at the Kinder Institute. So if you will, please help me welcome right now Stephen Kleinberg, the founding director, and Bill Fulton, the director of Rice University's Kinder Institute. Guys, come on up.
Hello, Steve Kleinberg.
Hello, everybody.
I just want to say, thank you. I just want to say, Steve, this can't be said enough, and I know people have said this in one way or another today, but the truth of the matter is that none of us would be here today. There would be no Kinder Institute. There would be a much weaker connection between the city and Rice were it not for you. So thank you very much for all you've done over the last 40, actually 50 years.
50 years.
For that.
Thank you, Allison.
So I know you're not accustomed to being interviewed on stage at this event, but I thought we might spend a little bit of time zooming back a little bit and talking about the survey, the history of the survey, and how you came to it in the first place. So I know some people have heard this story in one way or another, but how did the survey get started? We've heard several times today that it was a sociology student class project. We heard Lisa Gray talk about that in the video.
That's right. Well, it fell to my lot to teach a research methods class to sociology majors back in 1982. Houston was booming. 1 million people moved into Houston between 1970 and 1982, coming at the rate of 1,380 people a week, 230 cars and trucks every day being added to the streets and freeways of Harris County. Greatest boom anyone had ever seen, brought about by the tenfold increase in the value of oil. This was a one-company town riding the research, and it was a city world famous for having imposed the least amount of controls on development of any city in the Western world. Who cares if it's ugly? So what if it smells? It's the smell of money. Come on down. So it fell to my lot to teach this research methods class. A friend of mine had just started a new survey organization. And we said, let's do a study of how are people dealing with this tremendous growth, with growing concerns about traffic, pollution, crime. What kind of city are we building with all this affluence? One-time survey, never occurred to us to do it again. 2 months later, in May of 1982, the oil boom collapsed. Price of oil that had gone from $3.20 to $35.50 suddenly fell down to $28, but we were building and borrowing on the basis of $50 oil. And by the end of 1983, 100,000 jobs were lost in Houston. We said, my gosh, we better do this survey again. But it never, I get unfairly credited with having planned to study the city as that one-time survey, and then it became clear the world has changed in a really profound and powerful way. And this has been maybe the most interesting city in America as it comes to grips with the new realities of the 21st century.
But how did the survey become a big deal in Houston? You said people just started calling you up and asking you to go around town and talk about it. Is that really what happened? I mean, organically?
Basically.
It wasn't some strategy on your part or anything, it just happened.
Right, well, and I kept being invited to come and give a talk to the board of the bank about the findings, and I would be delighted to do that. Would you make a tax-deductible contribution to Rice to help support the survey? And the result was more and more interest and more, and those first surveys, it was me and the students doing all the interviewing.
Can you talk about that a little bit? So survey methodology is a bit different now than it was then, but in the beginning, actually, you and the students wrote the questions. They made the phone calls. Lisa Gray, I remember, has told me stories about making phone calls. But you personally made phone calls yourself.
Right. Sure.
Well,
and the beauty, I mean, that was the grand old days of survey research when everybody had landline phones. There was nothing like caller ID or answering machines. The phone rings, you answer the damn phone. And we had 80% response rates, and people say, well, why are you calling me? I said, well, we have a computer that gives us random phone numbers. We don't know who you are or where you live, but your views are really important. It's the third survey we've been doing in the city. Short, interesting questionnaire. Won't you help us? And they say, okay, well, what do you want to know? And once we start, almost nobody breaks it up. Today, the problem is no one answers the telephone anymore. So it's now done in a more complicated way by address-based sampling and getting people to come to connect it to the website, to the web interviews and fill it out in that way. And I sort of jokingly say, well, once I'm going to retire before the whole system totally collapses.
Did you get something, though, different or more nuanced out of making the calls yourself and listening to what people said in real time?
Oh, absolutely. It was, I hated to give that up, and in fact, I never quite gave it up. I always did 5 or 10.
Listen in, at least.
Listen in and do 5 or 10 interviews myself.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you really do get us. But it's been so interesting to just happen. I mean, Houston just every year brings surprises, new insights, or things that you begin to see suddenly beginning to change. And is that a real change, or is it just a random fluctuation? We're back next year and to ask it again and see if it's continued to grow up. And so you begin to get a real sense of where this city is, not by its politics, but by the representative random sample of all of us.
Of what people on the ground are really thinking.
What people in the privacy of their homes, how they see the world.
Now, as an academic, you took a different career path than many academics. You've always been interested in real-world impact of your research. Yeah. Many academics are content, to do their research, publish their research in academic journals that very few people read. But you've always had a different approach. How did you get interested in the real world implications of the research that you did?
Yeah, well, I came upon it sort of honestly because I'm the son of Otto Klineberg, who was a major figure in social psychology in the 1920s and 30s, doing the first serious research that showed that the differences in IQ between blacks and whites were due to the environmental differences and not to heredity. And he was able to show that in a dramatic way. It became part of the Supreme Court decision of 1959.
Brown versus Board of Education
right.
in 1954.
54.
Yeah.
That's right. But,
so that decision in large part was based on your father's own academic research in social psychology.
So I always had the sense that the purpose of social science research is to improve the world and to do research of the sort that can make a difference in people's lives.
Now, before you did the survey, you did a variety of other research projects. You were in Tunisia and so forth. Again, attempting, and it seems like the theme is how do people deal with social transformation in a community, right?
Right. In those days, I was always interested in the psychology of social change. How do people deal with a world that keeps changing on them? And in those days, you know, America had arrived, and Karl Marx once said that the United States shows, or the developed world shows to the underdeveloped world the picture of their own future. And I had an opportunity to spend a year in Tunisia with wife and kids, and a country where we interviewed parents and adolescent children, and 90% of the women in our survey had never been to school. Every one of their daughters was in school or had been to school. And so it was this transitional generation. How are people experiencing these changes? And then I came back to Houston in 1969, 1970, back to Princeton rather, and suddenly you realized you don't have to go anywhere outside America. The world is changing right here, right now, right? So, but that interest in social change that took me to Tunisia is also what knocked me into my interest in Houston, because here we were watching a city undergoing really dramatic transformation. And how do we deal with this? And who embraces that change and who resists it? And where is that coming from? And how does it change over time? And so it turned out, you want to study social change, you sit in Houston, Texas.
Yeah, not something you would have imagined when you were a young professor.
Right.
That it was possible. You didn't have to go to Tunisia anymore.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so 41 years. I think that a big question on everyone's mind is 41 years from 1982 to now, from when you first picked up the phone and started doing surveys yourself. What are the big takeaways that we find? For example, one of the most important takeaways that you've mentioned is the change in public attitudes about funding of public schools.
Right.
So tell us about that.
So this is one of the questions we've asked. It started in the 1990s. It said, which of these statements comes closest to your feelings about the public schools in Houston? The schools have enough money, if it was used wisely, to provide a quality education, or the schools will need significantly more money to provide a quality education. If it was used wisely. That's what we've always believed in Houston. We're spending all the money we need to. It's just being wasted. And that's what we found in the 1990s. It was 57, 60% saying the schools have all the money they need, it's being wasted, and only 40%, 35% saying the schools will need more money. Then during the first decade of the 21st century, it was a 50-50 split. We came back in 2008, 18, 20, and 22, and watched this sea change. So suddenly now 67% saying the schools will need significantly more money to provide a quality education. A new awareness across the board in the general public of the critical importance of education, that the growing inequalities, another aspect of what we find in our surveys is increasing percentages saying people are poor through no fault of their own. They are, the great belief in Houston that anyone can make it if they're willing to work hard and they got a strong right arm, turns out those jobs have disappeared. And education has become the critical determinant of a person's ability to earn enough money to support a family. You can see that across the board in the city. The central challenge, I mean, one of the, Houston, you didn't need education to make money in Texas. The big Texas fortunes were made from cotton, timber, cattle, sugar, oil. The source of wealth in the 21st century will have less to do with natural resources and more to do with human resources, with knowledge and skills. And the general public is coming to understand that. And that's been one of the fascinating and really important, I think, transformations. There's an opportunity here in Houston to act on these changes in a way that we would not have known before, I think.
I see Melanie smiling, and I think, Melanie, you were the one who said his energy and enthusiasm for this topic is just irrepressible, isn't it? Kind of amazing. Another big takeaway, let's go to the next slide. Another big takeaway that you should address, the demographic transformation in Harris County.
Yeah, we all know about it, but it's just truly remarkable. So here are the census figures for the last 6 decades. And you can see this biracial southern world. In 1960, 74% of us were Anglos, 20% were African Americans, just 6% Hispanics, less than 1/2% were Asians. During the oil boom years of the 60s and 70s, Anglos were pouring into Houston from everywhere else in the country. This is where the jobs were. By 1980, Houston had become the 4th largest city in America, still an overwhelmingly Anglo city. After the oil bust of 1982, the Anglo population of Harris County stopped growing and then declined. African American population fueled by African immigration, fueled by the remigration of middle class African Americans from northern cities back to southern cities. African American population kept pace at about 20% per decade increase, and surging populations of Latinos and Asians. And by the 2020 census, Harris County is now 43% Hispanic, 28% Anglo, 19% African American, 10% Asian and other. And that's what we were talking about earlier. This is where all the world's peoples are coming together in a very powerful way that reflects what the census tells us all of America will look like in 25 years.
I think it's important to note it's not just Harris County in the Houston area. In fact, Fort Bend County is even more demographically diverse than Harris County, right?
Fort Bend County is 22% Asian, 21% African American, 26% Hispanic, 29% Anglo. You can't get much closer to 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. And that's the measure of the true diversity.
That's truly amazing. And I got to tell you, once I saw a video where somebody asked Steve, where do you get all these numbers? And he said, I just make them up. But in fact, I remember the numbers from Fort Bend County, and he's absolutely right. He doesn't make them up. They really are all in his head. I think one of the third big takeaway that you found over the last 40 years, I think, is probably has to do with and the most fundamental polling question of all, which is, what do you think is the biggest problem facing Houston? And that's, as the chart shows, that's gone all over the place in the last 40 years. What are the big takeaways there?
Yeah, well, you can see a beautiful rendition of the history of Houston. Crime that...
Can you explain this to us, please?
So this shows the 4 big events, or big issues that people can point to and haven't pointed to. One is traffic is the biggest problem, then the economy, then crime, and then this mishmash of things. And then in the last couple of years, you can see this bottom line of public health issues, sort of at nothingness, and then suddenly, of course, the pandemic. But it's a powerful reminder, as you were saying, of how rapidly and continually the city is changing, and how our preoccupations shift along with the experience. One of the things that's particularly interesting at the beginning is that traffic was the biggest problem. 2 months after that first survey, the oil boom collapses, major recession. It was not until 1985 that the public finally said, oh my God, in boomtown Houston, the biggest problem was the economy. Right? And then, as I say, the economy went into even further recession, and then recovered by 1990. And in the 1990s, the big problem was crime. And then that subsided as traffic came back, and you can see this interesting variety that makes the city such an interesting place to study, because it keeps changing on us, and new issues emerge, and new preoccupations. And this year's survey does show more anxiety.
I was going to ask about, let me talk about this year's survey a little bit. The methodology has changed a lot. A lot of the surveys are filled out online, but we still go out and try to find people. And of course, this year's survey was done under the co-direction of you and the incoming director of the Houston Area Survey, Robert Bozick. Robert, you're out there somewhere.
You all need to meet Robert Bozick.
I don't know where you are, but thank you very much for all of your work this year, Robert. As Robert, of a different generation than you and me, really has brought some of these necessary methodological changes now that nobody answers the damn phone anymore like they used to, right? But talk a little bit more, particularly post-COVID, about what we found in this year's survey. And what was it, you said economic anxiety. Let's talk a little bit about that. And is that COVID related, or tell us a little bit more about what we found?
Yeah, well, so it's 28% spontaneously said the economy is the biggest problem, even though job opportunities are
Wages
tremendous.
are going up.
Wages are going up, but inflation is going up
Can't find
even
enough
faster.
workers.
And then crime is a growing preoccupation. And the pandemic is still a real phenomenon for large numbers of Houstonians. So I think there's this combination of sources of anxiety and sources of feeling ill at ease and some pessimism, and fewer people than ever. A question we ask every year that says, how have you been doing financially over the last couple of years? How do you think you'll be doing financially 3 or 4 years in the future? Fewer people than ever before. Just 50% think they'll be doing better 3 or 4 years down the road.
Typically, people feel like they're going to do better.
And it's usually 65, 70%.
Really?
The Houston optimism is problematic today.
Wow.
And that's one of the things to watch as we go forward.
Yeah. And Houston is the most optimistic city,
It certainly
probably
has been.
in the whole United States.
And it's hard not to be optimistic in Houston. So I have a feeling that what we're seeing this year is a reflection of a coming together of forces that are not likely to happen the same way again.
So Steve, looking back on 41 years of the Houston area survey, and the impact it's had on the city, what is it that you're most proud of? What has been the most important impact the survey has had?
I think the biggest source of pride that I have is the degree to which the greater Houston population has adopted these surveys, and the great advantage of objective data. I can always say to people, don't blame me, I'm just asking the questions. Here are the answers. And that ability.
And no one has ever blamed you, actually, now that I think about it.
Well, every once in a while
Sometimes they do.
I asked them to not the right question. But I can always point to other questions that you were happy with. And so, But I think that, I mean, this has been a revelation. I mean, I get unfairly credited with having planned to spend my life studying Houston and doing these surveys, but it's been primarily just the response of the greater Houston community. That even when we're not entirely happy with the findings, we want to know. And that sense of Houston being a place where good things happen when people come together and open their eyes to the realities. And I think I'm most proud of my city and how well we've all responded to the tremendous challenges that we've been facing over these years.
And you've said frequently how validating it is for you, for everyone in Houston and the consumers of the survey. I'm going to use the word validate again, but it underlines the value of objective social science research. Right. Which is not a fashionable thing. Facts are not fashionable these days, right? and so you see the ability to use facts and data to chart trends, and that Houstonians have been receptive to that.
That's right. I think we're self-consciously aware that we need to reinvent this city, and we're in the process of reinventing it and positioning it for prosperity. And what we all recognize is a different world than it was when our location in the East Texas oil fields was the basis for our wealth. We were jokingly talking about people in the 1970s saying you could dress a gorilla in a business suit, send him downtown, and he'd become a millionaire in a week. Just riding this oil boom to continued prosperity. Now the future is up to us, and there's an awareness that we need to make real investments to prepare this city for success in the 21st century.
Well, Steve, I want to thank you. I want to thank your family who's here today. Peggy's
Yes.
here today. Thank you, Peggy, for being by Steve's side all these years and being an instigator of social change on your own here in Houston for many years. To recognize your decades, I'm sorry I'm reading, I'm nervous. So to recognize your decades of leading the Kinder Houston Area Survey, the Kinder Institute, I want everybody to know this, the Kinder Institute has established the Stephen L. Kleinberg Fund for Houston Research. In your honor. In your honor. So now we have the Stephen L. Kleinberg Award and the Stephen L. Kleinberg Fund for Houston Research. And we are excited to announce that already we have raised $150,000 in the Stephen L. Kleinberg Fund for Houston Research, which will support the expansion of the survey. And I would be remiss, the director of the Institute is always the leading fundraiser. So therefore, it's incumbent upon me to say, if any of you would like to join us in honoring Dr. Kleinberg by making a gift to this fund, believe it or not, we will give you a card on your way out today. So you can make a donation if you'd like. But there's one more thing we want to do to celebrate Steve's life. Steve, we'd like to present you, in honor of 41 years, this painting.
Oh my gosh.
This is, most of you can't see this, but this is a painting.
From that picture.
It's a painting based on a photograph of Steve in the classroom. I believe the photograph was in the video. But this is a full color painting of Steve Kleinberg.
40 years ago.
40 years
35 years ago.
Sitting in the classroom, talking, probably Lisa Gray's probably in this picture.
Yes.
In the sociology students. So Steve, once again, thanks for everything you have done for us, and thanks for everything you've done for Houston. We really appreciate it.
Oh, Bill, thank you so much.
And I think we need to take...
Yeah, there's Lisa.
Okay.
You got it?
I'll take it.
Okay. Do I go over here? Okay. Oh, well, thank you all so much. I mean, my gosh, I'm so grateful to all of you. You don't need to thank me. And it's been just an honor to be a part of this community and to be able to make a sociological contribution to our understanding of who we are. And so many friends and colleagues have helped to make these surveys possible. I know I wouldn't have enough time to name everybody, but I want to name just a few. And before that, I want to introduce the guests who are at the Klineberg table. Number one, of course, as Bill said, is my wife, Peggy. This coming June, Peggy and I will have been married for 60 years. Stick-to-itiveness. We will have been at Rice and in Houston for all of the past 50 years, and we are celebrating today the 41st annual Kinder Houston Area Survey. Boy, does time ever fly when you're having fun. It's just amazing. Also at the table are our son Jeffrey and our daughter Kathy, who are not only phenomenal human beings in their own right, but they have also married two wonderful people and together have managed to provide us with 5 truly extraordinary grandchildren. So can't thank you enough for that. And my big sister, Rosemary Coffey, is here with her friend Bill Leffler, our nephew, Dr. Eric Kleinberg, who also went to Rice, class of '94, and where his son Walsh is a rising sophomore. So there's a Kleinberg connection here at Rice that will continue even as we go forward. But let me thank, I'm sorry, yeah, and great many individual friends. Oh, I'm sorry, this 41-year project would not have been. Okay, let me start. I am deeply grateful for the, wait, I'm sorry, wait, skip the page here. There we go. Want some help? No, I'm deeply grateful for the leadership of Bill Fulton, who has led the Kinder Institute so effectively during the past 8 years, for Jay Wu, who until recently was a research manager at the Institute, and for more than a decade worked closely with me to ensure the quality and accuracy of our analyses of the data. And I think Jay is here also. This 41-year project would not have been possible without the generous support of individuals and organizations beyond the Rice hedges. All of us are deeply indebted to Nancy and Rich Kinder, of course, for their extraordinary endowment gift to fund the Institute and for their continued help and sage advice throughout these many years. Generous support has also come from numerous corporations and organizations, from a great many individual friends who made personal gifts to the Institute to ensure the continuation of the annual studies. Let me mention and name just a few of those friends who have been so instrumental for all of us. Laura and Tom Bacon, Ann and Albert Chao, Catherine and Hank Coleman, Molly and Jim Crownhour, Maureen and Jim Hackett, Tracy and Ken Jonda, Sis and Hasty Johnson, Melissa and Steve Kane, Hedda and Shrub Kempner, Stephanie Larson, Rynette and Stan Merrick, Regina Rogers, Lois and George Stark, Phoebe and Bobby Tudor, and so many more that have really made this possible and encouraged us all the way along during all these years. I've been amazed and humbled every year that so many in the wider Houston community have embraced the objective data the surveys provide and have joined with us every year in venues like this one to hear about the latest findings from the surveys. In our surveys, the respondents generally complain because we invite them to about traffic, pollution, crime, not to mention the hot summers, the no mountains, the flying cockroaches. Then we ask them, well, how would you rate the Houston area as a place to live? It's a wonderful place to live. There you go. And the last time we asked the question, 75% gave ratings of excellent or good. And when we asked them in alternating years to compare Houston to other major metro areas in the country, 91% said that Houston was a slightly better or a much better place in which to live. I think that's and Peggy and I have had the same experience. When we first came to Rice in 1972, we didn't think we would stay for very long before heading back to the East Coast where we belonged, we thought. Like many other Houstonians, we came to this city reluctantly. The job is here. We'll go for a couple of years and be at this great university, but then move on to some more appealing place. Only to discover after a year or two that Houston is actually one of the best places in America in which to live. One of the most interesting and consequential, at the forefront of the changes that are taking place across all of America, as we've been hearing. The surveys have underlined three of the most important issues. We've touched on these, but let me just remind us of what has made this such a fascinating, extraordinary city of not only important for all of us who love this place, but also central to understanding what's happening across America. The rise of the global knowledge-based high-tech economy. The many good-paying blue-collar jobs have disappeared in the wake of globalization and robotics. We'll need to find ways to reduce the deepening inequalities in the city, predicated above all else on access to a quality education. If Houston is to succeed in this new economy, it will need to drastically improve its public schools and nurture a far more educated workforce in the years ahead. One of the reminders of this is that you didn't need education to make money in Texas. The great Texas fortunes were made from cotton, timber, cattle, sugar, oil. The source of wealth in the 21st century will have less to do with natural resources and more to do with human resources, with knowledge and skills. And we need to make those commitments and investments and keep them in a sustained and effective way if Houston is going to survive and succeed in the 21st century. Secondly, of course, the great epic transformation in the demographic, in the ethnic and cultural definitions of the city. This historically biracial, southern, Anglo-male-dominated city is rapidly transforming into one of the most ethnically diverse in America, increasingly composed of all the ethnicities, all the religions, all the peoples of the world gathered together in one remarkable place. This is the Houston story in the 21st century. As we know, Houston is where all of America will be by 2050. We are there first. This is where the American future is going to be worked out. And it's, again, what makes Houston such a significant and important place. And then finally, of course, the new importance of the quality of place attributes. If Houston's going to make it in the 21st century, it has to become a destination of choice, a place where the best and the brightest people in America, working at the cutting edge of knowledge, able to put that knowledge into commercial ventures, who can live anywhere, will say, I want to live in Houston, Texas. And that's a little bit of a stretch for Houston, but we have been making enormous progress in the last period of time in improving the overall quality of life, our parks and bayous, our venues for sports and the flourishing of our arts, the mobility and transit systems. In the next few years, we will need to build on the promise of the new Ion District. We need to strengthen our resilience to severe storms and rising sea levels, and we need to lead the nation in the transition beyond oil and gas into the new, less polluting forms of energy production. The contributions of the Kinder Institute, thank you. The contributions of the Kinder Institute, as important as they have been in addressing so many of these issues during the past 10 years, will be even more important in the years ahead. So it's truly great news that Ruth Lopez Turley will be the incoming director of the Kinder Institute, and that the Houston surveys will continue under the able leadership of Robert Bozick, the incoming director of the Kinder Institute's Houston Population Research Center. The key question for Houston's future is whether we'll be able to develop the effective and sustained interventions that we know will be needed to position Houston for broad-based prosperity in this time of economic, demographic, and technological transformation. So let me end by quoting from the closing words of this year's printed report on the survey findings, where we wrote, "It will be valuable to continue tracking the evolution of area residents' attitudes and beliefs into the next 40 years of the Houston story. And it will be especially important to find ways to translate that evolving understanding into sustained and effective action." Again, my deepest gratitude to all of you for your friendship and support for these 41 richly rewarding years, and my thanks to each of you for all that each of you is doing to help build a better, even more successful city in the years ahead. Thank you all so much for everything you've been doing for all of us. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Ruth Lopez Turley, incoming director of the Kinder Institute for Urban Research.
The summer of 2010, my husband and I drove over 1,000 miles to move to Houston with our 1-year-old and 3-year-old. Not more than 20 minutes into our journey, our 3-year-old began asking, "Are we there yet?" I left one of the nation's top institutions in my field and came to Rice for 2 reasons. I wanted to come back to my home state, and I wanted to do research that mattered. The very first entry on my Rice calendar was a meeting on July 6, 2010, with Steve Kleinberg. Steve was in the process of setting up the Kinder Institute after just having received a generous gift from Rich and Nancy Kinder, and I shared with him my plans to start the Houston Education Research Consortium. He encouraged me to house it within the Kinder Institute. In fact, Steve was present in my very first meeting with Rice administration. He was present in my first superintendent meeting and in my very first meeting with potential funders. I don't know if Steve knew that he was cultivating the Institute's future leadership, but that's what he was doing. And I'm extremely grateful for his mentorship, his encouragement, and his inspiration. Thank you, Steve. As we turn to the Kinder Institute's next phase, I'm honored to build on Steve's legacy, as well as the strong foundation set by Bill Fulton, who took a relatively obscure team in the basement of Sewell Hall and turned it into a very well-known and highly respected institute. Thank you, Bill. It's a privilege to step into this role with so much to work with. But if you ask me, like my son did, are we there yet? My answer is, like I told him, we're just getting started. It's time to take the Kinder Institute to the next level. It's time to move beyond research that identifies problems to research that identifies solutions. And not just solutions that address symptoms, but solutions that address root causes. You see, I'm not interested in helping those in need. Yes, you heard that right. I'm not interested in helping those in need. I want to eliminate need. Please don't misunderstand me. I grew up poor. I know firsthand what it's like to be in need. And I know what it's like to be the recipient of that kind of help. We must absolutely continue to help those in need. But we can't stop there. In order to move beyond Band-Aid solutions, that is precisely where research can be extremely powerful. Through research, we can develop solutions that eliminate need and ensure that everyone has an opportunity to build and share in Houston's prosperity, an inclusive prosperity. But we can't do this alone. Over the last decade, we've learned through HERC's partnerships with school districts that the best way to make research truly impactful is by working together. The users and producers of research must work together. That is why, going forward, all of the Institute's research will be done in direct partnership with those that can put our research to use in meaningful and impactful ways. Our partnership with United Way, announced just last month, is the first of these new partnerships, and there are many more to come. In addition to our partners, I am grateful for our home institution, Rice University. I've been working closely with our provost and incoming president, Reggie DeRoche. Reggie and Paula, please stand and be recognized. Reggie has very bold plans, but they're not just about making Rice great. They're also about making Houston great. I'm honored to be a faculty member at an institution that takes seriously its commitment to serve our community, and not just through occasional service projects, but through our greatest asset, which is our research. To me, that is the mark of an elite institution. I am thrilled and humbled to be the next director of the Kinder Institute. I look forward to working with our outstanding team, our partners, our funders, and all of you. I can't think of anything more exciting than improving lives through data, research, engagement, and action. But like my 1,000-mile journey with 2 toddlers, it's going to be a long and challenging journey. But we will be so glad we did it, and more importantly, so will future generations. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. As we close our program, I'd like to invite our amazing MC, Melanie Lawson, back to the stage. Melanie, thank you so much for guiding our program so well today.
How exciting was that? I told you this was going to be a great luncheon, right? Even Stephen making data delightful once again. That was great. But I also want to congratulate Ruth and Reggie. We are literally watching the changing of the guard, the handing off of the baton, and we know there are so many amazing things ahead of them and ahead for all of us. I want to thank Ruth. I want to thank everybody at the Rice University Kinder Institute for Urban Research for just allowing me to be a part of this program. And by the way, before I stop, they're going to kill me for this because they always do, but if Nancy and Rich Kinder would just stand up. I see Nancy shaking her head. She'll yell at me later, it's okay. We really want to thank them for having the vision to be so involved in the future of our city. So that's why I did it, Nancy, just this one time. So I want to thank all of you for being here today as part of such a wonderful event. I certainly want to thank Stephen for all his many years of bringing us information that has helped us grow as a city. And finally, we couldn't let you go without you picking up your own copy of the survey. It is available as you leave the ballroom. You'll have lots of nice squigglies like this to look over, right, Stephen? So thank you all for being here today. Be safe heading back, and we really appreciate you. We'll see you next year.